loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, Jimmy.
the loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, Jimmy.
the loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, Jimmy.
give up, give up, give up, give up, give up.
Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. I find it interesting that tonight we have the anniversary of Ground Zero. 19 years we've been on the air, and we're talking about earthquakes. We're talking about a disaster happening in a place where earthquakes are happening a lot, about 300 or so, but this is a big one. The moderate quakes are intensifying. The larger quakes and the intense quakes, such as what happened in Chile tonight, are intensifying actually off the coast. So right as we are hearing of all these natural disasters and how for years this program has been talking about a lot of disasters, catastrophes, paranormal events, conspiracy theories, or conspiracy ideas that are fact, we are always proud to give you the information and to be giving you the information before the mainstream does, and some other talk shows as well. As I said, Birkeland last night, 7+ in Chile. We got an 8.0. He was pretty accurate there. I'm just saying that I'm hoping that people take notice. I mean, we've been doing this now for 19 years. My background is in the news cycle at CNN and several other news organizations, regional reporter, mostly crime, mostly law, mostly investigating politicians. And now here we are, being labeled by people in the mainstream saying conspiracy theorists are dangerous. People who speak outside the box are dangerous. People who report something against what we call the law or the narrative is dangerous. Well, I'll tell you this much. For the longest time on this program, I've interviewed doomsday prophets, many of them, fascinated by how they come up with their ideas for doomsday. Marshall Applewhite's people. I interviewed friends of a guy that was part of the away team, the evolutionary level above human. I interviewed a survivor of the People's Temple. I interviewed Gunther von Haringa, who is, of course, Harold Camping's assistant, the man who said that the world was going to end on May 21st, 2011. Camping has died now. The world is barely holding together. It hasn't ended yet. But in the face of all things, something ironic is happening. The very government organizations and think tanks that have told us that the whole end-of-the-world warnings idea were bunk back before December 21st, 2012, are now resorting to the same end-of-the-world dialogue that they laughed at years before. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its latest report, Working Group 2, Contribution to the Fifth Assessment. Basically, the report reads like a doomsday cult manifesto predicting apocalyptic consequences if mankind fails to give the UN the power to tax and regulate fossil fuels and subsidize and mandate the use of alternative fuels. This is landed in several reading zones or reading sites that I go to, Forbes magazine for one, and the Associated Press, who provides news for everybody. In fact, the Associated Press reported that Nobel Peace Prize winning scientists, top scientists, are saying that climate change will complicate and worsen existing global security problems such as civil wars, strife between nations, and refugees. They paint a scenario in a 2,000-page report that is something that is beyond the Mad Max idea. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, that kind of stuff, the Road Warrior. It's interesting because this is their last-ditch effort to milk us for money so that they can conjure some miracle to keep us from being swallowed up into the abyss of apocalyptic hell. And they are basically saying that, yes, the world will end unless you wise up and help us combat global climate change. I mean, we've been covering topics on Ground Zero for 19 years that have surrounded the doomsday dialogue. And while preppers would prep, Bible thumpers would thump, we now have the UN sounding just like doomsday cultist preachers that believe that it's better to sacrifice yourself for the greater good and survival of man in times of revelation because it's there. Who do we believe now? Do we believe the religion? I mean, they've been telling us this for 2,000 years. Now government's saying it. Oh, well, you can't beat them. Join them. It's ending. The world is ending. But there's a caveat, ladies and gentlemen. We can help you if you pay us, we can tranquilize all the problems of the planet through geoengineering. We're brilliant. We're smart. But the truth is that they're not going to help the planet at all. The politics of pseudoscience is changing us all into, well, we go from America to the Americult. I just want to give you a few quotes. We'll go to the calls. The Obama White House said, this is their statement about the report. John Kerry, quote, "The costs of inaction are catastrophic." The one who wrote it, Rahendra Pachuri, the man who wrote the 32-volume, 2,610-page report, wrote this. He said this: "This is a call for action. Without reductions in emissions," he said, "impacts from warming could get out of control." 21st century disasters such as killer heat waves in Europe, wildfires in the United States, droughts in Australia, and deadly flooding in Mozambique, Thailand, and Pakistan highlight how vulnerable humanity is to extreme weather. According to the report from the Nobel Prize-winning group of scientists, the dangers are going to worsen as the climate changes even more. Finally, Princeton University professor Michael Oppenheimer succinctly told us this. He said, "We're all sitting ducks." So now the apocalypse is big business for the UN. It's big business for these people who are planning our demise. And I resent the fact that for times there are many people who have sounded the alarm saying, hey, there are things going wrong in the world. It's not necessarily attributed to climate change, but there are many things we need to look at. They're like, oh, Chicken Little, somebody hit you in the head with a brick and they made you all scared. The sky is falling, you little twerp. No. Who are the Chicken Littles now, UN? Who are the hysteric people now? Who are the preachers now? Who are the cult people now? I mean, we have Fukushima dumping plumes of radioactivity into the ocean. We have CMEs hitting the planet, one due tomorrow. It may knock out power. Who knows? We got space rocks, potentially hazardous objects. And you're going to magically fix it, UN? Is that what you're going to do? No, you're not. You're going to focus on climate change. You think we're that stupid to follow the cult? No, we're not. 95% of our nuclear reactors are leaking. The Hanford site in Washington State has the potential to be our Fukushima here in the United States. The Gulf of Mexico, well, that's been contaminated with Corexit. No one will know that. China sells contaminated food to the world. We have Monsanto polluting our food here at home. And yet they tell us that they have the magic key to eliminate all the doom that's headed our way. And they tell us something needs to be done or it'll all be catastrophic. The Extinction protocol is in play now. It angers me that they're now going that route. It angers me that they're using what is known as the destructive cult dynamic to get people to pay attention now. I want to really know now who owns the eschaton. The UN wants to own the end of the world, and they want to be able to save us at the end with some magical key. And all we have to do is pay our carbon taxes and do what we're told. This smells... Despite what you're being told, despite what the scientists are saying, this is a cult. This is cult activity. These guys have all the laws and they have the key. But the only way to get the key to open the gate to heaven is you have to pay them. Pay for your sins. Pay for those environmental sins. Or that environmental monster that we've created is going to come and eat you in your sleep. And when a third of the population disappears, they'll say, well, it's all because of that environmental monster. But we can stop it. Just keep paying. This is insane. This hysteria has got to stop. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.